Welcome to the Shower Epiphanies podcast, where we explore your hidden thoughts and desires, revealing your greatest drop the mic moments. Now, here's your host, Art Costello.
Welcome to the Shower Epiphanies podcast. Today, my guest is Melissa Lucas. Melissa and I have a lot in common. She's a thought changer that's making waves in the self-help community as both a thought-provoking, inspiring speaker and author. She speaks on the importance of deleting security and comfort to tap into your true happiness beyond your comfort zone. Melissa is raw, real, and challenging. My kind of girl. Others step outside of their comfort zone and have a life journey that will lead you into a more happy and fulfilling life. Professionally, Melissa is a business strategist, personal growth expert, motivational speaker, author, host and producer of the Happiness Potential podcast. She does yoga, meditation instructor, and runs a project called Happiness Potential. She believes we all deserve our best life possible, but we must uncover ourselves to get there. She states that we all have the ability to be happier and more fulfilled, but we must make the affirmative choice to get there. Welcome to the show, Melissa. It is an honor and a pleasure to have you here. Can you tell us your story?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you wanting to sit down and have a conversation. My story is, I have never been normal, right? So I don't think any of us are normal, right? So, my story starts when I was about 10, 11, 12 years old, right? And so when everyone's, when they're 10 and 11, they're typically, playing outside, playing sports, having fun with their friends. And for me, I was always wanting to read books and I wanted to learn about people. And rather than wanting to play with my friends, I wanted to come home and watch Oprah. I wanted to come home from fourth grade and I wanted to watch Oprah and I wanted to sit and learn about people. And, I was always so interested in people bettering themselves and why people made the decisions that they made. So I obsessively learned about people and how they behaved. And, I was always seeing this thing, for whatever reason, I could see things from a different perspective than other people, right? I could always see how people were doing things that harmed themselves or how people were doing things that bettered themselves. And so, I always had this kind of knack for wanting to understand people and why they do the things that they do. So fast forward into my life now, I'm now in my 30s and I'm helping people tap into who they really are. So as a life coach and also as a business strategist, I'm helping people tap into who they are on a real level. And I've done that work on my own as well. I spent years and years and years of my life trying to figure out who I was and what life meant to me. And I've kind of used my lifelong research study of why people, do things that they do and how they become happy and, using my own life's work of trying to find out my own true happiness and who I am and why I make bad decisions and good decisions. And now I help other people do that. I write books about it. I speak about it. And, and here I am. So I've just been this person that's just been obsessed with living my own good life and helping other people find that. And it's just my true passion.
It's interesting because what I'm interested in, and I think what really my audience likes to hear is, other than Oprah, did your parents ever encourage you along the way? Were you self-encouraged?
1,000,000% self-encouraged, right? So I don't want to talk bad about my parents. They're great people. But, they were just normal people, right? They were just, they're baby boomers, right? And they were just normal people, middle-class American people working hard. And, they never really encouraged me to do anything besides go to school and study and do my homework, typical parent things. But no, I was completely self-motivated beyond anything that anyone could encourage. Like I never had anyone encouraging me. Even to this day, I always just had this extremely self-motivating voice in my head.
That's really interesting because I believe that what drives us is that inner voice that we have inside of us, but most people don't listen to it. They just poo-poo it off.
I love that. I completely agree with that. That's one of the things I talk about all the time is our inner voice and our intuition, right? Because we all have that inner voice that's like telling us, hey, try this or do this. But for me, I've just always been extremely intuitive from a very young age. Hence why I heard these messages and I had these, or maybe I heard certain things that I thought were interesting and I always kind of followed them, where a lot of people, I don't think, ever follow them, or maybe they start following them maybe later in life.
Well, I think it's fear. When I was 9 years old, I was abandoned and had to figure out life on my own. And I went to a mountaintop and laid on my back and had a conversation with God and asked him what was going to become of me. And after making that trip many times, I heard a voice inside of me that just said, your job is just to do. Just be a doer and be good, have integrity. I didn't say integrity, but have, just be good and passionate and all those kinds of things. And I began to believe it after quite a while of going up and doing that, laying on my back on the hill. And it's what's driven me all my life. It's what's driven me. And I sense that in you. You listen to it, but most people just hear that and just go, and it scared me at 9 years old. I tell you, I almost jumped out of my skin when I first heard that voice, because I thought, man, I'm on top of this hill and there's not anyone around, who's saying that? But I listened to it. I believed in it, and it served me well all my life.
So I think what you're saying is really important, right? That you heard it and you listened to it, right? And so I think for me, I always heard the voice that said, okay, you need to learn how to really understand people as much as possible, because you're later on going to have to help other people do this. Like, I knew that from a very young age. Like, I knew that I was gifted a set of eyes to see and understand certain things in people that I knew I needed to point out to people to help them. So as a kid, I was even doing that. Like, I would tell my parents, like, no, you're not supposed to do that. Or, hey, so-and-so said this. I don't think that's really what they mean. Or I was always questioning things. And as a kid, when you start questioning things, a grown-up will tell you, be quiet, right? Or
oh, yes.
Speak when spoken to. I always remember being told, speak when spoken to. And I'm like, no, but that's not right. And I was always questioning things. And even when I was going to school, I was questioning things. And, I was always questioning things because I could see that there was a lot more behind people, right? Because who we are we're not showing everything when we say things or when we speak. Who we are behind closed doors is not always the same, right? I knew that from a very young age, that there's a lot more going on in our heads and our lives than what we see. And so for the longest time, I was doing that and I was being told, be quiet. No, that's not right. I started kind of hushing myself up for a long time because I needed to follow the rules, right? So, but I always...
my problem was that I didn't hush myself up. I could get myself into more darn trouble. You talk about stirring the kettle. I stirred the kettle.
And like fast forward to like my, adult years, I'm being told I'm a thought leader and I'm a visionary and all these things. And I'm like, well, I'm just telling you what I see. I'm not really trying to innovate people's thoughts or anything. I'm just seeing things from a perspective that I feel like is worthy of people hearing or understanding, and now, as I'm older, I understand that I can use those things to kind of really help people. Where when you're younger, I think you get these, maybe a gift you could call it, or like insights, and you're not really quite sure how to hone in on that.
Yeah.
So
I write a lot about perspective and perception because people confuse perception and perspective. Perception is what you see. Perspective is what you do. How you live, the action. Perspective is the action. Perception is how you see it and process it.
Right. Totally agree.
Okay. We're in agreement on this then.
That's a good start. It's a good start.
Well, I'm so basic in the way that I approach everything. And, that's why expectations are so important to me and how we process them. So with me, it's very methodical and scientific in my approach to things. So I guess that's my explanation for my oddness and not being normal.
But what's interesting, right? So I think what a lot of people do is they conform to be normal, right? And try to have similar perceptions on life and insights on life when really we should have our own individual experience, right? And none of us should really be normal. We should be unique and an individual, right?
The need to have closure in any given situation is sheer human nature. And when it comes to romantic relationships, this desire skyrockets. Has your previously failed relationship left you in immense pain? It's not uncommon for people to shy away from a new relationship after their first one fails miserably. The fear of the unknown makes them hide in a shell to prevent any future heartbreak. Relatable? Despite wanting to love and be loved, you can't take the plunge if your mind and heart are still locked somewhere in the past. Maybe you aren't aware of the power of releasing the past, or perhaps you don't know how to do it. Art Costello in his online course teaches the art of moving on from bad places to happier, more stable ones. This course can change your life for good, helping you beat all kinds of negativity on the road to eternal bliss. Sign up now before the gloominess gets the better of you at expectationacademy.com.
Starts with your expectations. It really does. Because if you live to the expectations of others, then you're not living to your true self. But when you identify and build your own expectations, your core expectations of who you are, and you focus and are zoned in on them, then you become your authentic you, who you are. And I love it when people are their authentic selves. Most people can't handle people being who they want to be. They want them to be who we want them to be, who they want them to be. And that's BS.
Exactly. I completely think that, a big part of why people are not as happy as they could be is because they're not able to live up to their own expectations, right? And they're living up to other people's expectations, whether it be expectations of their parents or society or whatever. I think in some small way, everyone started out, living up to other people's expectations, right?
Well, I think that they do, but they shouldn't.
Right. So like as a child, we're expected to do certain things. And then when we go to college and then into adulthood, we have these I talk about this a lot when I speak in my writing and stuff about how we all kind of have our level of living that we think we're supposed to do certain things to fit in with, our environment or fit in with our family or our community or where we come from. Certain things we do and choose are based on expectations of our surroundings, right?
See, and I never lived like that because I didn't have anyone who placed any expectations on me. I had to figure out everything on my own. So I had to trust the inner me, and I had to be me. And I did not let other people. We all have to live to the expectations of society in the sense that we have legal limits that we have to do, legal things that we have to stay within the boundaries of that. But I never, ever let anyone else's expectations drive me. It was always me. And that's probably why, I've bucked a few heads here.
To me, it sounds like you're a really brave person. And a lot of people I talk to are not brave enough to live that life because they just don't want to go against what people want of them, or they don't want to feel, not accepted.
I just think when we have our self-expectations are so solid and we know exactly what we want and where we're going, and you don't let anyone else alter that expectation, that it does wonders for adding clarity to your life and direction.
So as you would call an expectation, I like to call it purpose. Like having a purpose or having several purposes and meanings to why you're doing certain things then kind of creates like a vision. So having purpose or meaning, or like you would call expectations, kind of almost like saying I have a set of standards for how I live my life or what life means to me, and kind of creating a life according to that.
Yeah, it could be. I think it goes deeper. And, because a lot of us are taught to set goals and all that. But think about the difference between a expectation and a goal. I get to ask this question quite a bit. What's the difference between an expectation and a goal? You want to try to answer it?
That's interesting. So to be honest, right? So I always when I'm talking to people, I tell them goals, right, are just kind of boxes we check and then we move on to the next thing, right? So it's not something that we can actually hold on to. A goal is kind of like something we're working towards and we feel like once we get there, we'll be happy, or once I get there, I'll be successful. An expectation to me is saying, well, this is what I want out of something. This is the feeling I want, or this is the emotion I want, or this is the level of fulfillment I want. Expectation to me feels like it's something much larger than a goal. To me, a goal feels much smaller.
You got it. You got it. Because goals are fluid. They move, they can change. And we're actually conditioned to change goals all the time. I mean, it's okay not to reach your goals as long as you keep trying for it. But when you start messing with your expectations, it's a deeper core value inside of you. And it has a whole different effect on, I've done this here twice in the last week on podcast. I want to read it to you because Dr. Richard O'Connor is a psychologist, and he has a quote that's on my desk, and I love it. Procrastination is a way for us to be satisfied with second-rate results. We can always tell ourselves that we'd have done a better job if only we had more time. If you're good at rationalizing and can keep yourself feeling rather satisfied this way, but it's a cheap happy, you're whittling your expectations of yourself lower and lower. And it's such a truth when we start messing with our expectations, because they're so in our core, that if we start messing with those and trying to play with them like we do goals, we start whittling away at our self-worth, our happiness, all of those things. It's so tied into it.
Well, I also think it's saying that there's limits to my being, right? So it's saying there's only a certain limit to what I can be, like who I actually am. It's limiting who you are as a being, right?
There are no limits to who you are and what you can be.
Exactly. So I think like if you open that, then like your potential is unlimited and the levels to who you are unlimited, right? And when you limit that, you're limiting your happiness too, right?
Yeah.
And your existence, right?
See how you like this one, because this is mine, solely mine. I firmly believe in the possibility of everything. It's how I live my life. I believe that everything's possible, and it's possible when you believe. When you believe it is, it becomes possible.
Totally. That's how all the great things in my life have happened, right?
Exactly.
When everybody's like, I don't think so, that's a horrible idea. I'm like, nope, I totally believe this is possible. And even though I don't have the resources or the background or whatever, my intuition and my gut feeling is this is possible. Yeah, it's all about your mindset, right?
Yeah, it is totally about your mindset. Can you tell me some of the great things that have happened in your life?
Yeah. So like for me, I'm an entrepreneur, right? I have several like business ventures. And for me, I didn't come from a business oriented family. I had no friends or any resources that would allow me to have any ideas of how to start a business, how to become an entrepreneur. I was always told, go work for somebody and, work for people, find a great job and you'll have a secure life, but I always thought, no. Like I want to be a leader and I have all these ideas and there's all these things I want to do. And I'm just going to have to figure out how to start a business. So when I started getting close to 30, I started thinking like, I really need to start a business. For years, I kept thinking I need to start a business and everyone was telling me no. Like, you don't have the background. You're not smart enough. How are you going to do that? You don't have the money, And so one day I finally just said, you know what? I'm going to figure out how to start a business and I'm going to talk to as many people that start a business as possible. I'm going to go learn, read books, get an MBA, do all these things so that I can learn how to run a business. Now, here I am running a business and I'm also a business strategist helping all these people be really, really successful in their own businesses. And it's more or less about having the mindset and the passion and all those resources come along. When you start to believe in yourself and believe that things are possible, I'm a strong believer in the universe will bring you resources and knowledge and kind of pinpoint you and show you, light up your path, so to speak. Once you believe in lighting up your path, a lot of things will come along to help you. And so once I kind of stopped listening to everybody else about being a businesswoman, and being told there was no way I would be successful. And even when I started my business, everyone around me said, "Oh, why you can't do that full time? You're going to fail." And, I was like, failing's not an option here. Once you tell yourself that something's an option and you strongly hold on to that, anything can happen. Same thing happened for me when I became an author. I had never been a writer in my entire life. The only thing I had ever written was a blog and maybe some social media posts, and I wrote a lot of papers in college, right? But I had never thought in my wildest dreams that I could become a writer until I realized something had hit me when I had started working with a lot of people and helping people. I got this internal feeling that said, you need to write about what you know. And then I had kept being told like, oh, you're not going to be able to get a book deal. You can't be a writer. Same thing, And then sure enough, when I started to believe that, I had started opening up my emails and I'm getting publishing companies saying, hey, you should write a book. I didn't even have to put a book proposal or like people started saying, I hear what you're saying and you should write a book. And so it was like, as soon as I put that thought out there, those things started coming to me. And here I am, and now I'm already on my second book and, I'm already thinking of a third book. And it's like, once you start believing those things, not only will the resources come to you, but all these ideas come to you too, because you're open, right? It's all about opening that door.
Has anyone ever inspired you to discover a happier, healthier, and more fulfilled you? It is a magical experience, isn't it? Inspiration is indeed very powerful, yet it's often undermined. It can lift you from the ground to the sky in no time. Have you ever thought about returning the favor by inspiring the people around you? If you don't think you have it in you, we have good news for you. Art Costello's online course has everything you need to learn to supercharge yourself and shape your character into a powerful personality. Get ready to discover your strengths and unleash the creativity within. Don't believe it? Check it out yourself by signing up for this life-changing course at expectationacademy.com. That's expectationacademy.com.
Well, I think we start to manifest them. Once we start being creative and start really focusing on it, we manifest it. But I'll tell you my quick story about what my greatest thing about manifesting or believing, whatever you want to call it, and it involves a woman, a blonde. When I was young, I had been working in the entertainment industry and had been in San Diego, and I saw this blonde, and I was with a friend of mine. And I said, you see that little blonde over there? I want to marry her. And he looked at me and he said, that gorgeous blonde wouldn't give you the time of day. And I said, I'm going to go talk to her. So I walked over to her and she holds up her finger and she had a rock on it. And she said, I'm engaged. I don't want to talk to you, blah, 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 blah. You talk about blowing a guy off. I mean, she just blew me out of my saddle, man. I could have just walked away, but I turned around and said to her, I said, someday you're going to marry me. And she said, BS to you. She said, I'm marrying someone else. So over a course of time, I don't want to say I stalked her, but I was infatuated with her. And I through friends, kept track of her. And little did I know, she was keeping track of me. And I lived in Newport Beach at the time, and she was in San Diego. One day I'm at my apartment and I'm getting ready to travel because I was in the entertainment business and I was getting ready to go on a big trip. And I hear a knock on my door, and a friend of mine was with me, one of the musicians that we managed. And he said, I had been in the shower, and he knocks on the door of the shower, and he says, Art, there's this gorgeous blonde at the door. This is a year and a half later. And I wrapped the towel around me. And of course, that's when a towel would fit around me. But but anyway, I went and answered the door, and here she is. And she's crying. And I said, what's going on? And she said, I caught my fiance cheating. And she said, the first person I thought of was you. And I drove up to here to see if you would talk to me. So I put everything on hold that day and night. And do you know, 38 years later, she died in my arms.
Wow.
Ovarian cancer. We never, ever parted from that day forward for 38 years.
Wow.
So, folks, when you believe, because anything's possible.
That's beautiful. And that's just really, truly it. Like, I think you have the expectations of good things coming to you, right? And believing in things even when they seem like they don't make sense. Because a lot of times the things that are meant for us don't make sense.
I think that when you start being positive, positive begets positive and negative begets negative. You know, you ever talk to one of those people that's always negative and they just kind of really, you think, how do you get through the day being so negative? And they just keep attracting that negative.
Right. And so ultimately, like, we create what we think and believe for the most part. And if we don't believe in good things happening, even when they don't make sense, well, of course they're not going to happen. Then if you wouldn't have walked up to her, she would have never showed up at your door to who you were, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know a year and a half later that she knew my name, but she did, you know.
That's amazing. And I think it's really interesting because it's like, if we just show up in our own lives, then things show up for us. But if we don't ever show up for things that we want, then they don't happen.
You know, and one of the things I was thinking when you were talking before was about opportunities. When opportunities present themselves, people like you and I go after them, and other people just stand and stare at them. You know, and that's the difference between us and them.
Right. I totally believe that. And it's interesting because I think a lot of times, I know this for a fact, when I was younger, I passed up a lot of things because I maybe didn't have the confidence or maybe the support system. And then later on in life, I learned to have my own, like, support myself and be confident. And so I started being able to say yes to things, even if I knew I wasn't ready. Because a lot of times we're not ready for the big things to happen or for things that are meant for us. And, you know, I think that's it. And so it's about being able to show up for yourself and being open. And I think a lot of people aren't open or able to show up for themselves because of fear.
Yeah, no stops everything. Fear stops everything. And when you do that and you don't show up or don't put out the effort to figure it out because you don't know it. You know what? I mean, every day I learn new things. Every single day I learn new things, and I'll never know everything. And that's what makes life so fun for me, because every person I meet, everything I do, I'm always learning something new, and it's tweaking my thought patterns and how I perceive things and how I live my life.
And what you said was interesting to me, because what you said is every day I'm learning new things, right? And so I believe, you know, one of the ways we can continue to grow as a person and to be happy is by continuously learning, right? Like, there's an endless possibility to learning, right? You know,
absolutely.
And my grandmother, right? She's a great example of this. She's 93 years old, right? And all she does is read and learn. And she's constantly teaching me things. And I'm like, how do you know more than I do? Like she doesn't go on a computer, but all she does is read, and she's constantly learning. And she's so smart and so with it, you know, even at 93 years old. And she's so excited about life. And guess what I heard? And you know, this is what's happening. That's the way to be, right? Is to constantly find new ways to view life and to find deeper ways of understanding things. And it just brings so much excitement into life. Like, oh, I didn't even know this thing existed, or I didn't even know this view existed. It makes life refreshing, right?
Well, your grandma is really inspiring to me, because she's living proof that when you put new ideas and thoughts in your head and continuously feed your brain, it keeps you young. It keeps you active. Have you ever seen these people who retire at 63? They go sit in front of the boob tube, and then you read a few years later that they vegetated away because they didn't keep active, their brain going.
Right. And sadly, right, I think our culture now has a lot of people sitting behind their computer or their phone right? And they're just kind of maybe like on autopilot.
Oh, boy, you just hit a nerve with me. People today are on autopilot. They get up in the morning, they get breakfast, they go to work, they come home at 5, they turn the TV on, they vegetate till the news comes on, and then they go back and vegetate some more till the 11 o'clock news comes on. And they think they're being stimulated when they're really not. They're not using all of the faculties that they have.
Right. So it's like the Netflix culture, right? And there's nothing wrong with watching stuff here and there for enjoyment. But I think this like Netflix culture where we're binge watching, I just binge watched 5 episodes of this. And it's like, ow, like what's going on in those? You just let go 5 hours of your day to something we gravitate. And same with our phones, a lot of younger people with their social media, and I'm scrolling through this, and I'm looking at this, and I'm liking this. It's like, what's going on inside your brain? Like we're not stimulating our thoughts. And so that's scary.
I always act like I got ants in my pants. I mean, I've got to be moving. It's hard for me to sit here even for an hour and just do this. I want to get up and move around. But I have a feeling you're very much the same way, because you're very visual with your hands, and people can't see this in the podcast, but I'm looking at you and I can see your hands moving, and I can see your eyes, and I can see you thinking. And I think that those are really, really great traits, because they're not great when you're in school, but
No, not at all.
But people who are thinkers and doers got to have that motion. They got to have that oomph behind them that drives them.
Yeah, and you've hit it. And yes, I am. I always talk with my hands. Hence why I was kept being told like for years, like go be a speaker. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've been a motivational speaker like my whole life. I'm talking with my hands and I'm telling these big stories like, well,
What I love about that is then you go to speaker school and they tell you, don't be flailing your hands. And they tell you all these things not to do. I went one day to a speaker school and said, I can't do this. I mean, I've got to be me. It was don't show emotion and all that. For me not to show emotion, I'm a big crybaby. I mean, something hits my heart and the tears flow out of me like it was some river, whatever one you want, the Amazon or the Nile or.
and you hit it right on the nose. So I think what you said was like exactly it. Like I'm one of those people that I live life with passion. I'm always interested in hearing more, and I want to learn more, and I need to know what else is out there. So for me, I'm always reading books. On my nightstand, I have 5 different books right now. I'm reading one book and I learn, and then I'm picking up another book on something totally different. And I just want to keep learning and understanding more and just like living life. So I'm always listening to podcasts. Even when I'm cooking, I'm listening to a podcast or I'm listening to an audio book. And I just want to keep hearing more thoughts and ideas and just want to understand people more. And like I mentioned, my grandmother, she's doing the exact same thing. She's constantly listening and hearing and understanding more. And the more I learn and understand, the more I appreciate things too.
Don't know which direction you want your life to take? Are you sinking deep down into the pit of uncertainties day by day? So, what's the secret to leading a happy, satisfied life? It's taking matters into your own hands. But what if the matters in question are a total blur? Art Costello's Expectation Academy course aims to tell you exactly how you can get some clarity in your life. This course can be your savior on your journey to reinventing yourself. While you certainly can't plan your whole future ahead, you can definitely control twists and turns your life takes. So what are you waiting for? Sign up for this course now at expectationacademy.com. Get a chance to broaden your horizons and add meaning to your life. That's expectationacademy.com.
The other part of it for me that I just had this epiphany that just went through my mind. I bet you it's different for a woman to be inquisitive versus a man being inquisitive. And I can't address how a woman would handle it, but guys can approach people more readily. If a woman approaches a man or person starts asking a lot of questions, they're called nosy, busybodies, all of that. But if a man approaches people, women or children or whoever, and starts asking, he just wants to know. He's inquisitive. Do you think I'm onto something a bit there?
I think you hit the nose on the head, which is why for so long, I was being told to be quiet, right? So what I realized is it's kind of like what you're saying, it's okay for men to be more inquisitive or want to know things. But for women, it's kind of like, we got to behave, or we got to kind of conform, or we need to be quiet.
They got to meet the expectations of the male run society.
Right. And so now I think things are starting to turn over a little bit with all this women's empowerment stuff. But I think what you're saying is still ringing true in a lot of areas, right? In organizations and society, or even in our family structure, right? So thank God I have someone, I'm in a relationship with that encourages me to speak up. And, my family, they're used to me by now. And people hire me to help, ask these questions, especially men. Most of the people that I help, whether it be on life coaching or in my business strategy and my business coaching, I'm helping people ask deeper questions about themselves and about their work. And a lot of women aren't willing to go there, or we're told not to go there, or not, being supported in going there, because we're too empowered almost, or it's not looked at as appropriate, where, it should be appropriate to use your voice, right? Or to use your thoughts.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, if you don't, you're really selling yourself short, because you're not living authentically to who you are. If you are the type of person who is inquisitive, then I agree. I think you should pursue your inquisitiveness till you stop being inquisitive, and then find something else to be passionate about. But when people don't do what is in their heart and soul and is their true passion, they're literally whittling away at their self-worth, their self-value. And I don't think anybody, I don't care if you're a man or a woman or a child, every one of us that walks on this earth has something to contribute, has value, and has something to add to the society, no matter who it is. Anybody, everybody.
So you mentioned epiphanies, right? And so I think for me, my big epiphany was probably when I was 27, 28. And I realized that maybe I had conforming too much. So I always knew that I was a much more empowered person, or maybe I saw things a different way. And, I started being quiet because after so long, it gets exhausting to be, the person that everyone's hushing in the room, right? And then something hit me no, I just need to find the right room. So I heard the saying that it's once you find the right room, your voice will be heard and people will value it. For the longest time, I wasn't being valued for myself. So it started to make me a little sad and depressed and anxious. I couldn't feel like I could be myself. So I kind of had the epiphany I need to start being myself and actually just being okay. If people don't want to hear my voice, I need to keep searching till people want to hear what I have to say and find value in it. And I think a lot of people have that problem, right? Where they maybe try to be themselves, but they don't feel like it's okay.
I think it's 95% of the population are not into who they really want to be. And that's why what I do and what you do is so important when we guide people into being truly authentic to who they are, And
I think that should be our lifelong goal, is to continuously be ourselves and to follow that.
I agree. It's getting to the point where I used to be of the thought that women were suppressed more than men. And then I really started realizing that as humans, both men and women are suppressed. And I think there's as many men out there who are living lives that they just absolutely hate. But women are coming to self-actualization with it, beginning to realize and moving out of it and starting to become more. I mean, you see it across the board in our society. More and more women are becoming entrepreneurs. They're becoming stronger. They're becoming heads of households. And men are taking that back seat to that. And they're dying. Men are dying, and they don't know how to reach out. It's a whole area for us as coaches that we need to start really trying to figure out how. I have a friend who's a life coach, and he has a business that is just absolutely geared to men only. Men, no women. He cannot find clients at all. I mean, he suffers daily trying to find clients because men think they know it all. They're too strong. I'm the dude, man. I'm, blah, 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 blah. And they don't tap into or don't want to tap into any help that will get them to realize who they are. So this is my plea to men out there. Stop. It is okay for you to ask and seek help and become powerful.
I love this, where you're going with this. I actually had a similar conversation on a podcast last week where I was saying something kind of similar in the sense that, like, a lot of men and women, but a lot of men are walking around very unhappy, but they never speak a word about it. They have to be strong, and they have to have this persona of, like, I'm the strong man and I have everything under control, and I'm the provider and I do all these things. And it's like, we're all humans. Everyone's a human, right? And like you said, women are starting to become empowered, I think, in the professional world, where I think men need to be empowered in, like, their emotional world, in their inner world. So men are very driven by accomplishment and making things happen and being the caretaker and in control. And I think the thing I see, and I actually work with a lot of men, I think for whatever reason, I draw a lot of male clients in. Majority of my clients, about 90% of my clients are men.
Really?
And they're older men, right? Men 45 to like 65, right? Men that have had success and built a great family and built a great life. And they're screaming on the inside. Screaming because they don't know who they actually are, or screaming because they haven't found actual happiness, or they can't find joy. And like, they're just kind of getting up and running through the motions, which a lot of people are. Isn't
it funny? Because the people that I deal with, it's probably 85% women and the rest of it men. In the men, it's like pulling teeth out of them, where women, but I relate well to women. So interesting enough, I relate well to men because my thing with a lot of men has been to help them find their emotional world, right? Mm-hmm. To help them feel empowered, but also feel like they can be a human, right? And to say, like, I'm not happy and I need to make changes. And I also help them find more meaning, right? So a lot of these people that I'm working with are just not able to really be themselves on a genuine level. They haven't tapped into that. They haven't been allowed to, go there. Have you done any studying on emotional intelligence? I taught emotional intelligence, right? I used to go speak at organizations and talk to like CEOs and like C-suite people and a lot of business leaders about emotional intelligence, right? It's a skill that everybody should have, because if you can't identify your emotions, how are you ever going to be able to control them? Right. So like for a lot of men, right, they're angry. Like a lot of men go towards anger, but there's much deeper things underneath that anger. So I think it's interesting. So I love what you're saying. And I think women are so much more willing to ask for help, or they maybe are more open to saying things aren't working, where men, no offense to you men, but like you're a lot more stubborn when it comes to making changes or saying, oh, really? Or I give up, goes to asking for directions, right? I know where I'm going, even though you know damn well you don't know where you're going. It's like, where do you want to go to dinner? That's a question in our household all the time. Where do you want to go to dinner? I don't know. I'm tired of eating. I don't want to eat anymore. Right. So we are getting near our time together ending, and I want to give you the opportunity to tell us about your work and your book and all that. So you can take 5 or 10 minutes and however long it takes you. And after that, then we'll kind of shut this thing down. But you and I will do this again. You and I have a good connection. I think we'll have fun.
I think we got a lot more to talk about. So definitely do agree with that. And, so right now I have a book that you can find out Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's called Stepping Out of Your Comfort Zone, The True Essential Guide to Happiness. And really, it's just kind of my life's work that I've put out this book. I've worked with lots and lots of different people like me and you were talking about. I've actually worked with anywhere from the age of 18 all the way up to people in their 70s, trying to help them find happiness and meaning and purpose in their lives. And I've kind of put that work that I've done with my clients, and I've put that down in a book. So I wanted to find a way to help people find more meaning and happiness in their lives. And I've done that with so many of my clients that I wanted to be able to reach many more people. So I sat down and I wrote a book about things I've experienced in my own life and things that my clients have experienced, and how we've all worked to kind of push our own boundaries and transform into a happier version of ourselves. So that's kind of my life's work and my book with my clients. And I go out and speak. You can find me speaking at conferences and at organizations, trying to help people kind of leave that comfort zone, or, leave those goals or those expectations behind, like you say, and find out that we have much more to our lives than, what we see in front of us. Like our limits to our happiness and who we can become are limitless, right? And it's just kind of like about opening up that doorway to our happiness, and who we are is never ending. And same with our learning process and our growth process as a person. It's a never ending unfolding process. So, that's kind of what I want to encourage people today as they're listening, that our happiness and, who we can become, it's never ending. I'm giving my grandmother as this example. Until our last day is on earth, like what we can find out and who we can become never stops, right? So I want to encourage people to go on that journey. Life is a journey, and take it and enjoy it and keep finding out what's there for you. And if you don't pick up my book, find another way to do it. Find a way to keep discovering life and make that a lifelong process. And you're going to find a lot more happiness when you do that.
You can find her at edgeofyourcomfort.com.
Yeah, edgeofyourcomfortzone.com. Instagram at edgeofyourcomfort. Type in Melissa Lucas, Edge of Your Comfort Zone. You'll find all kinds of stuff on me. Lots of inspirational stuff.
Super duper. All these things that we talked about will be in the show notes, everybody. So you can find out about Melissa in the show notes and all that. And it has been truly a pleasure talking with you. And I'm going to have you back on, and we're going to mash this thing out some more and solve the world's problems and all those things. So with that being said, everybody knows where they can get a hold of me. I'm going to encourage you to pursue Melissa's work and get involved with it. For the women listening, kick your husbands in the pants or your boyfriends and get them to get involved and get their feelings out and start taking care of themselves. We need to do that, everybody. So everybody out there in Shower Epiphanies land, you know where you can get a hold of me, expectationtherapy.com. And with that being said, Heather White, go ahead and take us out of here.
Thanks for listening to the show. Drop us your comments and questions with what you want answered on the show. You can subscribe on iTunes and Binge Network. You can also get more information on the website, expectationtherapy.com.